It's not something vague and general like a movement. It's for each son and daughter of God to be a new creation and to look like a new creation. Friedrich Nietzsche was a German philosopher, and he definitely didn't believe in Christianity. And one of the things he said in one of his works was, if I'm going to believe that Jesus really is the Redeemer, Christians are going to have to look more redeemed. And I think that's a fairly reasonable request. If we say that Jesus is Lord, and there's nothing stopping Jesus, that he has all power in heaven and earth, well, we should be able to manifest that power. We should be able to say, look and see the difference. If we say that this baptism of the Spirit is the power of God come into our lives, well, we should have lives that look like they had the power of God come into them. And that's what the Lord's calling us to. You know, there's a problem that I feel sometimes we get into in the charismatic renewal. And it's a question of focus. I think this is something that happens to all of us. It happened to me, and it happened to all my friends, and it happened to most people when you first come into the charismatic renewal. The thing that you notice most quickly about it is the new power of God and the new possibility to experience God in a living way. What catches our attention is the baptism of the Spirit and spiritual gifts. And that's where, practically speaking, our focus becomes on a new spiritual experience and on spiritual gifts, tongues, prophecy, things like that. And that was certainly what happened to us in Ann Arbor when we first got involved in the charismatic renewal. We could say whatever we wanted about it, but people knew when they first came in contact with us that the thing we were most preoccupied with was getting people baptized in the Spirit, getting them speaking in tongues, and getting as much prophecy and tongues and interpretation and healing as possible to happen. And that's a natural thing when something new comes. And I think that's a very, very important thing. There's no question about it. The Lord wants people baptized in the Spirit. He wants them to be able to experience Him. He wants them to be able to do the works of power which He did. But there was a point of change that happened in the life of our community. And that point of change came after, maybe a year or two of a new charismatic movement in Ann Arbor, with a lot of people coming. And at the beginning, right from the beginning, we had one of the situations where there was a great number of people coming, and it was a great success. And for a while it seemed like that all we were doing was just flying high on the Spirit. It almost seemed as if we couldn't do anything wrong. And then clouds began to gather. We began to see some difficulties appear. And those of us who were most part of the movement, who were closest to what was happening in the community, after a while began to see that there was a good chance that we might not be going on any longer. That the kinds of difficulties that were beginning to appear in personal relationships among us meant that we might not be able to keep it hanging together. The Lord seemed to be doing His part with all the people who were coming, but we weren't really sure that we would keep it going together among ourselves. And there's a very distinct possibility that we might have all left and gone our separate ways. And the Lord was using those difficulties to make a change in us. He wanted it to be different among us. And the only way it could be different is if we changed our focus off of the baptism of the Spirit and the spiritual gifts onto something that was even more central, namely loving God and loving one another.